Hello, and welcome to the Scientist Stage Sangha. I'm Nancy Anderson Dolan from Wise Heart Wellness. And tonight we're talking about the word Elsewhen. And most people have never heard about it. The last sort of version spotted anywhere was in like the 1500s. But I came across it recently in a book by a Buddhist practitioner that talked about elsewhen being where we spend a lot of our time and not wanting to be where we are. And specifically, it talks about being a different place in time. So in a past time or a future time, or even these sort of fantastical ideas like a different time would be different, like it was so good long ago, or in the future it'll all be better, and how we stay away from ourselves by doing that. And he talked about the consequences of it being a lot of anxiety gets created when we can't be where we are, and a lot of disconnection and discontent because we are uncomfortable in this moment in time. So we're not really here. And the only positive actions we can take are from right now. And so if we are some elsewhen, then we're not moving through time in a useful way, and actually generally getting more anxious about it. And it hit me quite hard because a lot of people are talking about time right now, like time management and that sort of thing. And coming after COVID, where a lot of people had their time perception changed. You know, some of us, it was, we were stuck in our houses doing nothing and time stretched on a lot. And some people were, at home with their young children trying to work from home, and, time squished down. But however it was, a lot of people stopped and reconsidered how they were spending their time. And this idea of how we're spending our time and whether we're here right now or not. So we're going to talk about time management, a whole different kind of context here today, and the ways of how we can come back to be where we are right here in the moment. And the idea of this shift that's happened with people, of course, time didn't shift, time stayed the same, but our perception of it shifted a little. And that has a lot to do with how we experience time. It isn't necessarily real clock time that matters so much. Vihai talks about being in a flow state. And in a flow state, it's like time expands and we don't notice what's the time passing, but very in-depth and very creative. And sometimes you can get a tremendous amount done in that flow time, or get amazing ideas. And all of the greatest inventors and scholars of time talk about this kind of experience of time. And so we want to think about that, but also the post-COVID world that has so many things in it that push us to want to be in a different time. Whether it's the growing violence or wars or food prices. I saw a wonderful thing on Facebook today. It said, grocery shopping is making me consider how pine cones taste. And that sort of thing. But literally going into a grocery store right now is like, I wish it was before when groceries weren't so expensive. Again, this push on our idea of time and when we want to be in it. And the idea that it's difficult to be here now, because there's some real difficulties here on the external, we can all share those kind of conceptions of difficulties, is one part. But the other part is our own experience of time. And that ongoing stress and that sort of thing for people really affects how we feel about time and the stress we feel about it. And we want to make good use of time, and we worry about time wasted, that sort of thing. But there was an article by Tim Ritchie, and he is the president of the Boston Museum of Science. And he asked, are we courageous enough to greet reality as a friend? And this is sort of at the crux of us not being here in this moment because we don't like the reality of it. And a lot of that right now is that uncertainty that came after COVID, knowing that the world could be in the grip of a plague isn't something that the people alive on the planet have really experienced a lot. And so it became very fearful. And we don't want to be in these times. We want to be in a different time, the economic problems. We don't want to be in these times dealing with those things. And so this idea of being comfortable, and as frightening as it all sounds, it really, if we can't live in time with ourselves where we are right now, we don't have any hope of solving our problems or the global problems. It gets pushed off to another time. And so this idea is really pretty simply, you sit down and you stay still and you just stay, just like you're training a puppy, just stay. But it's hard. It's really hard. When we feel uncomfortable, we want to do things and make things be different. And we like them to be different quickly. And so that moving out of the time we're in, we want to move on to the next piece of time really quickly. But a lot of the time we don't learn and we don't get the deep wisdom of our particular next move when we're moving that way. We might search frantically. During the pandemic, people were searching all over for information that made them feel better. And sometimes that information was accurate and effective, and they could take good steps towards taking care of themselves. And sometimes it wasn't, but it made them feel better, so they would grasp it too. And it's really tricky to work through this idea. And actually, here's where I'm going to try and sell you on staying in the time we're in anyway, because it is a bit of a sales job for most of us. Because a lot of we can look around us and see people and societies and things being in denial of, how things are in time. And there's whole groups of people that want to go back to a better time when it was like that, whatever that meant. But we actually can't go back, but we can be conscious here and then step forward into new things that we address together, a shared, more common reality. But that means everybody has to be at home in their bodies and be present. And it's very uncomfortable to do that right now. And the other part is that really, we only have dominion over this time. We can't go back and change the past. And we cannot guarantee change in the future. And we can't guarantee, how long it might take to change the future. We can't guarantee the outcomes. We know now that we are living in a much more precarious situation than we ever believed. We didn't believe there could be another big war in our time or a plague like this that would affect the entire globe. And those are just realities that we've come to understand. And so this idea of doing this, it's not the other big sort of roadblock that people have is often a spiritual one. And people that hold on to a particular spiritual belief may believe that, because they believe that, they're going to be spared somehow from the next thing that's happening in time. Or if they do certain things, then they will be spared from that time. And other than that, it might be, we're all just going to say, no, everything happens for the best all the time, and move in that way with still a lot of denial. But how each person moves will be a little bit different too, because we are not all supposed to be going forward and doing the same thing at the same moment. We all have a part to play in the world, but until we sit down and sit into our fear and sit into our discomfort in this particular moment in time and let that clear, we don't let that big wisdom that can come up from us. And all of us have that wisdom. And the embodied wisdom is a natural course that I used to teach, because it was teaching people with eating disorders to be back with the wisdom of their bodies. And we need that wisdom of our body now just to move through the world. And so I'm going to just talk about some things that help people move into being able to sit and stay. And we don't know what's going to happen, but we do know that there's things beyond our scope and imagination that may happen. So we can't exactly plan for them, but we can plan to be present as things that evolve. And then we can be doing things that are useful. In the email that I sent out, there's a practice, and I want you to just do it right now. And I believe very strongly in learning to meditate and learning mindfulness and all those things, but they're kind of difficult and they take a while. So remember that, keep it on the back burner, it's useful to do. And I'm going to give you some things you can do right now. And the first thing really to do right now is just sit in your body and notice what's going on. Someone called me the other day and said, "How are you doing?" And I stopped for a moment. I truly, honestly contemplated, and I said, "I am cold." That's how I'm doing. I'm cold. And I could, in that moment, just think, being cold doesn't serve me or any greater purpose right now. I guess I could go get a sweater, and I can just take the next natural, reasonable action. But if I am not wanting to be in the moment, if I, say to myself, "Well, don't be a wimp, it's not that cold," or if I just distract myself and talk to somebody on the phone, my body actually gets tighter and tighter because it's telling me about something that I need to take care of, and I'm going to take care of it. And so it doesn't just go away, it has some reaction in my body. And I know for me, being cold makes me a little bit anxious and a little bit edgy. I'm not responding as kindly to people when I'm cold. And so I just know that about myself. And so I pay attention to that particular thing. So we all have things like that. Maybe we've had something to eat that has affected us poorly. Maybe we haven't eaten and we're hungry, like the commercials all say, what you get like when you're hungry. So there's lots of things that can go on that affect us being right here, right now. And we ignore them, so we move out of time. Our stomach might be thinking about dinner, or I might be thinking about getting off the phone so I can be more comfortable. And being here just right now. So I'll just encourage you right now to think about that for a minute. And what I like to say is, now just see where you are. See if you are in your body. You might not. I used to feel I lived a little bit to the left. So anybody with an experience of being just outside their body a little bit. Or as I say, are you on vacation from your location? You're not home at all in your body. You're just a talking head right now. Sometimes that's true too. And just notice what's going on. Just notice what's going on. If that's what's happening, then, okay, I'm a little to the left here, or I'm not here, or wait, I feel really in my body at this moment. It's really useful to know those things. And when we become persistently present, those fears that come up that are sort of vague and, in the background can actually come here, but then they can move through. I was working with a young person this morning and just saying, I know this is uncomfortable. This feeling is making you feel like that. Like literally she would go. I said, but if you just let it come up, you can have that feeling and it'll move through. And then next time you can feel that feeling and it'll be easier and you won't resist it so much. And it'll allow you to act with more consciousness, which is a really good thing when you're a young 20-something, because I don't know about the rest of you, but I wasn't all that present in my body at that age, and I did some things that I kind of regret. But we'll get to that part of regretting time in a minute. So those ideas, really just see how you're doing. And then there's ideas that we come to in time, and we shift how we're feeling in time. And so one of the things that is really useful, and I'm going to give you a few, but not too long, because I'd like to do a little meditation at the end. Things like gratitude. and gratitude for what you're grateful for in this moment. And being in this moment and being grateful for having feet, having fingernails, having good teeth, just things like that, breathing. And that gratitude brings us to the present moment with some concrete kind of feeling to it. And then we're not running away, we're just present and we're feeling a little better in the present moment. So it's one way to do it. And slowing down our experience by writing down just what's going on can be really useful. It's like, okay, right now I'm a little bit hot. And my left leg is a little bit sore where the ankle's broken. And I'm a little bit hungry. Okay, here I am. And I'm really comfortable. I feel quiet in my body generally. I can have those other things going on, and yeah. And I am aware that I have a small puppy that I'm sort of waiting to see if she'll get noisy during this recording. And waiting that I have family coming home soon, and is that going to cause noise? So I have all those things. But as I notice and actually slow down to write them down, slowing down is one of the ways to come home. And it's not about deciding how to deal with anything or noticing and evaluating, I am like this because of that. And this is, it's just like, oh, here it is. Oh, that's what that looks like. Oh, that's what I'm feeling. Oh, that's what I'm thinking. And just writing it down. And then one of the last ones here that is talking about deciding how I want to encounter time. And so the practice that I often talk about is a weekly practice that I picked up from Deepak Chopra, and I've shared with, so many people. And it is an idea of having an intention for each day. And so on Mondays, I am peaceful. So too bad that my tech problems happened today, because otherwise I could have just been peaceful with them. But today I just had to be present with them. Because Tuesdays I practice presence. And that's how I want to spend my time and be with my time. And so there's these different kinds of things that we can do intentionally in the moment we're in to shift the moment, but to be very, very present, literally planning how I'm going to be. And it's a useful way to see what's going on in time, because if I'm being peaceful on Mondays and something happens that I would react unpeacefully to, I can notice that right now I'm feeling unpeaceful and I might have a choice. And I might be able to choose, oh, right, it's Monday, I feel peaceful. But I might not be able to, but I can still notice in that moment because my intention gives me a backdrop that I can see against. Okay, I'm having this unpeaceful. So deciding how we might want to encounter that is really an interesting way to come to time as well. And being aware of our emotions, because emotions take us out of time a lot. I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I'd certainly been out on a lovely walk in a park near my home with my dogs, and I'd normally be having a lovely time. But I've had a little emotional upset before I left home. And that emotion has taken me totally out of the park. My body has taken the steps, but my emotions and my brain are not present at all. They're back there with that thing that happened that I didn't like. And so if I can pay attention to my emotions and notice when emotions take me out of the present moment, I can come back and go, here I am walking in the park and still feeling angry. That's a whole different experience than just checking out. And usually when we're just checking out like that, we're just building more of that in our body, and it doesn't help our body or our mind, and it doesn't solve anything. If I sit down in the park on a bench and say, okay, I'm just going to open up to perhaps some solutions to this moment that I had, that's a whole different thing too. That's a moment in time where I choose to bring this forward in time to this moment where I can contemplate it, to seek a solution. Really different than that ruminating that steals a lot of our time. So being aware of your emotions and what's happening in real time for you because of them. So the last thing I want to do is talk about grieving time lost. Because grieving time lost can actually gain us more time. And it can help us be present. Because if something has happened in our lives, and it can be a time perhaps that we were consumed with addiction, we had some sort of illness, we weren't aware enough to spend time with, say an aging parent, or maybe we have an illness or a brain like mine that has a lot of ADHD, and then I'm not in time all the time. I am out of time trying to catch up to time, trying to figure out where all the time went a lot of the time. And so, but we grieve time, and it's so unhelpful and so unnecessary. But we need to come and be in this moment, bring that grief into this moment in time and go, oh yeah, that moment where I didn't get to do that. I was very lucky to come into some really solid recovery before I had my children. And so I was really aware of the passage of time as my children grew up. And I found it really overwhelming, but I made decisions based on how can I stay present in this time with these children. When my mom and dad were going through Alzheimer's, it was another really stressful time. And I really want to stay in this present time with these people. And even with someone in my family who's struggling with a lot of emotional kinds of things, I really want to stay present. And
Girl, Rosie.
part of my body wants to stay present. Part of mine wants to not be present. And so I get there and I go, okay, remember that you want to be present. Remember that urge to check out and be elsewhere in time is something you want to be careful with. And then I just get to be here. So that grieving part is, I really want to work with that, just a quick little meditation contemplation. And as we usually end with, but first of all, just to tell you, being present in time takes time to develop. So if you get upset because you're not present, you're missing some more time. If you can be compassionate about this and curious about it, is the best possible way to really come into time, really experience time deeply and wisely and joyfully. And so what we'll do is just close your eyes if you want, go off camera if you want to, and just take a couple of deep breaths. Just relax into this moment. And this moment, notice, are you on the premises? Are you with yourself? You might feel a little pull away from the past or the future. And a really effective tool that I've used for a long time is to take a couple of breaths and just let go of anything outside this time before you came here that might be pulling you out. Just breathe it out. And now just take a couple of breaths of things you might have been thinking in the future, worrying about, and just breathe them out too. Creating space for right here, right now. And in this space right now, you might bring anything that you may have been grieving about lost time. It might be lost time with your health, a job you didn't explore, a trip you didn't take, noticing just having been unconscious. But just hold yourself in a lot of gentle compassion, knowing this is a universal human experience, that we are always feeling like we need more time, or more time with that person or with this situation. And just let that energy of grasping just flow out of you with your breath. And any sadness or anger or fear or regret that you have, just be recognized and acknowledged and released. And this is a wonderful practice to practice moment to moment during your day. Whether you miss a phone call, or you can't find your keys, it takes you time to find them. Just be in the time of finding them. And if you find yourself grieving something from the past, take time to acknowledge that feeling in your body, that thought in your mind. Acknowledge it and release it, honor it. Allow it to come up at that present moment so it can be released back to where it belongs. And you can most certainly do this with fears of the future. It's a great practice to do with fears of the future, where you are worrying forward. And that's taking you out of this moment. Again, acknowledge and honor those things and the feelings they bring up in your body and the thoughts they bring up in your mind. And I'll also acknowledge that it's not right now. And whether it's things from the past or things from the future, ask, is there some ceremony, ritual, thought, thing that I can do about this now in my present time? And you might ask that many times with the same situation. Before you have a feeling, hear something, get a nudge. And it could be anything from phone and talk to someone about it, to write it down on paper and burn it, or envisioning it going up in smoke. Often we get very unique and personal ways to move with these things when we take the time, in this time, to ask about it. So I will let my people that are with me live come back at their own time. And I'll just close the video portion for those that are joining us later. Thank you all, those that are with me right now, those that are looking at this later. And please feel free to send questions or comments or donations to scientistsage@gmail.com. I love to hear what people are thinking about, suggestions for topics you might like discussed, or questions you've had about topics we have been talking about. So take care. I am with you you are with me. Blessed be.